The moment that fake HOA security guard pushed my 10-year-old daughter Lily from her wheelchair, tears filled her eyes as she fell to the ground. Her small body trembled as she began to cry. That's when my brother Mike stepped forward. In one quick move, he knocked the man to the ground, his SEAL training obvious in every motion. The guard never saw it coming. "Nobody touches my niece," Mike said in a voice so calm it was scary. The neighborhood would never be the same after that Saturday afternoon, but to understand how we got there, how a quiet family visit turned into the day our community was finally freed, you need to hear the whole story from the start. But before start the story, please let me know in comments from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Last spring, my wife Rachel and I finally found the perfect house in Sycamore Creek, just outside of Phoenix. After years of saving, we could finally afford a ranch-style home with wider doorways and accessible bathrooms for Lily. Born with cerebral palsy, our bright-eyed, determined daughter needed space to move her wheelchair and do her therapy exercises. The neighborhood looked perfect: clean streets, big trees for shade from the hot Arizona sun, and friendly-looking houses. The old owners told us about the HOA but said it was relaxed with fair yearly fees that mostly paid for lawn care and shared areas and keeping up the neighborhood park. "This is it," Rachel whispered during our final walkthrough. "Lily can finally have her own space she can move around in." Watching our daughter smile as she rolled easily through the wide hallways made us sure this was the right choice. For the first time, she wouldn't have to struggle with tight spaces or need our help to move around her own home. We bought the house and moved in with big hopes, spending our first weekend setting up Lily's room with all her special equipment. Our happiness lasted exactly 3 days. Monday morning, I was helping Lily down our new wheelchair ramp when someone knocked hard on our door. A woman in her 50s stood on our porch, her blonde hair pulled back tight, holding a clipboard like it was something important. "You've put up an unauthorized structure," she said without even saying hello, pointing at our wheelchair ramp. "That's against Sycamore Creek's rules." "I'm sorry?" I replied, confused. "This is a necessary accommodation for my daughter. I'm Mark, by the way, and you are?" She ignored my friendly greeting. "Patricia Winters, Sycamore Creek HOA president. All exterior modifications require written approval. That ramp is non-compliant with our aesthetic standards." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Ms. Winters, this ramp is protected under the Fair Housing Act. My daughter needs it to access our home." Patricia's lips tightened. "Rules are rules. You'll receive a formal violation notice. Remove it within 72 hours or face a $200 fine." As she walked away, I noticed Lily watching with worried eyes. "Is she going to make us take away my ramp, Daddy?" "No, sweetheart," I promised, though anger burned in my chest. "Nobody's taking your ramp. Don't worry." That night, Rachel and I researched housing laws, confirming what I already knew. The HOA couldn't legally force us to remove a necessary accommodation for Lily's disability. We printed out the relevant laws to show Patricia if she returned. But the next morning we found more than just Patricia waiting for us. A bright orange violation notice was taped to our door, along with a $200 fine. What troubled me more was the man standing near our mailbox watching our house. He wore what looked like a security uniform with Sycamore Creek safety patches that seemed homemade. He was tall with a buzz cut, and he had something on his belt that looked suspiciously like a weapon. When he saw me notice him, he walked over with exaggerated authority. "Morning, sir. Just making sure you received your notice about the code violation." "And you are?" I asked, keeping my body between him and the door where Lily might appear. "Officer Dawson, Sycamore Creek Security," he replied, puffing out his chest. "Ms. Winters asked me to monitor this property for further violations." "Officer?" I questioned. "Are you with the police department?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Private security. I enforce HOA regulations." Before I could respond, our next-door neighbor Tom walked over. In his 60s with kind eyes, he'd brought us cookies when we moved in. "Mark, can I borrow your hedge trimmer?" he asked loudly, then lowered his voice. "Don't argue with him. We'll talk later." Something in Tom's expression told me this was important, so I nodded. "Sure, stop by this afternoon." Dawson watched our exchange with narrow eyes before walking away with unearned confidence. Tom came over around 3 p.m., after Lily's therapy session. While she napped, he shared the neighborhood's secret. "The HOA was dissolved 5 years ago," he explained, voice low like he feared being overheard. "Patricia was the president back then, but when they voted to end it, she just kept going. Made up new rules, hired that fake security guy, and started collecting fines that go straight to her personal account." I was stunned. "That's fraud. Why hasn't anyone reported her?" Tom's eyes darted toward his window. She targets people who can't fight back. Started with the elderly who didn't understand their rights. When the Martinez family questioned her authority, Dawson slashed their tires. The police couldn't prove anything. And everybody just accepts this? Rachel asked, joining us. People are scared, Tom admitted. She's got files on everyone, real or imagined violations she threatens to report to the city. Most folks just pay to avoid trouble. Not us, I said firmly. We're not paying a cent for a legitimate accommodation for our daughter. Tom nodded slowly. I figured you wouldn't. That's why I wanted to warn you. Be careful, they escalate when challenged. Over the next 2 weeks, the harassment intensified. New violation notices appeared daily. Our mailbox was non-regulation height, our garden hose was improperly stored, even Lily's adaptive bike in the backyard was cited as unauthorized recreational equipment. We documented everything, taking photos of each notice, recording when Dawson parked outside our house for hours watching us, and researching Arizona laws about fraudulent associations. We weren't the only targets. The Garcia family across the street received a $300 fine for speaking Spanish too loudly on their patio. Mrs. Kim, an elderly widow, was fined $250 for placing her trash cans out at 5:50 p.m. instead of 6 p.m. Slowly, carefully, we began building a network of frustrated neighbors. Meeting in different houses each time to avoid attention, we collected stories, compared notes, and gathered evidence of Patricia's schemes. We discovered she'd collected over $50,000 in fake fines over the past 5 years. Dawson, we learned, wasn't even licensed as security. He was her nephew who'd failed the police academy entrance exam 3 times. The breaking point came when Mrs. Kim received a notice threatening to place a lien on her house for unpaid fines. She called me in tears, afraid she would lose her home. We need to end this, Rachel said that night. These people are preying on our neighbors. I agreed but wanted to proceed carefully. We need solid evidence and witness statements before going to the authorities. And we need to make sure nobody gets hurt in the process. That's when Rachel suggested calling my brother. Mike had just returned from his 3rd deployment as a Navy SEAL. After years in combat zones, he was taking some leave before his next assignment. When Rachel called and explained the situation, he didn't hesitate. I'll be there tomorrow, he said. Nobody messes with my family. Mike arrived on Friday afternoon, his presence immediately noticeable in our small neighborhood. At 6 feet 2 inches with the quiet confidence that comes from elite military training, he didn't need to try to be intimidating, he just was. Lily adored her Uncle Mike. Despite her disability, she insisted on trying to stand to hug him when he arrived. He scooped her up instead, carefully supporting her small frame. How's my favorite niece? He asked, making her giggle. I'm your only niece, Uncle Mike. He winked. Still my favorite. That evening, I briefed Mike on everything we'd learned about Patricia and Dawson. He listened quietly, occasionally asking clarifying questions about Arizona law or the layout of the neighborhood. When I finished, he nodded slowly. This isn't just about money, he observed. It's about power. People like this get off on controlling others. What should we do? I asked. Mike thought for a moment. First, we document everything legally. Then we force them to show their hand by challenging them directly. People like this always overreact when their authority is questioned. Is that safe? Rachel worried. Mike's expression was calm but determined. I won't let anything happen to any of you. But we need to expose them publicly so everyone can see what they really are. We plan to hold a legitimate neighborhood meeting on Saturday afternoon, a cookout in our backyard where neighbors could safely share their experiences and we could collect signed statements. What we didn't plan for was Patricia and Dawson's reaction when they found out. Saturday dawned bright and clear. By noon, our backyard was set up with tables, chairs, and a grill ready for burgers. Neighbors began arriving in small groups, each bringing food to share and stories to tell. Mike chatted easily with everyone, his military background giving people confidence that we weren't just complaining, we were taking action. Mrs. Kim brought documentation of every payment she'd made to Patricia over 5 years. The Garcia family had recorded video of Dawson threatening them. Tom had kept a detailed log of fake violations in the neighborhood. Lily was in her element, wheeling between groups and offering lemonade from a small cooler attached to her chair. Her smile was contagious, and for the first time since moving in, we felt part of a real community. That's when Patricia and Dawson appeared at our side gate. This gathering was not approved by the HOA, Patricia announced loudly. Everyone needs to disperse immediately. The yard fell silent as neighbors turned to watch. Some instinctively began gathering their things, the habit of compliance hard to break. There is no HOA, I replied clearly. We've confirmed with county records that the Sycamore Creek Homeowners Association was legally dissolved 5 years ago. Patricia's face reddened. That's false information. I have the documentation. No, you don't, Mike interrupted, stepping forward. What you have is a fraud scheme that's ending today. These people have signed statements detailing how you've collected unauthorized funds through intimidation and false claims of authority. Dawson moved to stand beside Patricia, hand resting on what I now could see was a taser on his belt. You're interfering with official neighborhood business. Mrs. Kim, usually so timid, stepped forward. You took my Social Security money with your fake fines. I had to skip meals to pay you. Others began voicing their grievances, years of frustration pouring out. Patricia's composure slipped, her practiced authority crumbling under the collective anger. Dawson, shut this down, she ordered, backing away from the growing crowd. That's when things escalated. Dawson strode toward the center of the yard where people had gathered, directly toward Lily, who was in her wheelchair by the lemonade table. Clear the area now, he shouted, reaching for his taser. Mike moved to intercept him, but Dawson was focused on creating fear. Perhaps he thought intimidating a child would scatter the adults. Perhaps he just wanted to demonstrate his power. Whatever his reasoning, he made the worst mistake possible. He pushed Lily's wheelchair hard, knocking it off balance. Everything seemed to happen in slow motion. The wheelchair tipped, and Lily fell to the ground, her small body crumpling onto the grass. Her cup of lemonade spilled across her shirt as she began to cry, more from shock and fear than pain. The moment that fake HOA security guard pushed my 10-year-old daughter from her wheelchair, tears filled her eyes as she fell to the ground. Her small body trembled as she began to cry. That's when my brother Mike stepped forward. In one quick move, he knocked the man to the ground, his SEAL training obvious in every motion. The guard never saw it coming. Nobody touches my niece, Mike said in a voice so calm it was scary. I rushed to Lily, cradling her and checking for injuries while Rachel called 911. Neighbors surrounded us protectively, forming a barrier between us and Patricia, who was shrieking about assault and legal action. Dawson tried to get up, reaching again for his taser, but Mike placed one firm foot on his wrist. That would be a mistake, he warned quietly. The police arrived within minutes. Initially confused by the scene, a neighborhood cookout, a man pinned to the ground, a crying child being comforted by a dozen concerned adults, they began taking statements. The evidence was overwhelming. Multiple witnesses had seen Dawson assault Lily. Neighbors lined up to provide testimony about the fake HOA scheme. Mrs. Kim brought her meticulous records of payments. Tom had saved every fraudulent violation notice. The Garcia family showed videos of Dawson's previous threats. Most damning was Patricia's own documentation, seized from her home after police obtained a warrant. Her personal financial records showed nearly $200,000 in HOA fees deposited into her private accounts over 5 years. Dawson, facing charges of assault on a minor, impersonating security personnel, and carrying an unauthorized weapon, quickly turned on Patricia, revealing their entire operation in exchange for leniency. Patricia was arrested for fraud, extortion, and conspiracy. As the officers led her away, she maintained her indignation to the end. I kept this neighborhood respectable, she shouted. You'll see what happens without proper oversight. Mike stood beside me watching the patrol car drive away. Some people confuse control with leadership, he said quietly. She never understood the difference. The following weeks brought changes no one could have imagined. News of Patricia's arrest made local headlines, prompting investigations into similar schemes in nearby neighborhoods. Other victims came forward, revealing that Sycamore Creek wasn't her first target. Neighbors who had barely spoken before now gathered regularly, working to heal the divisions Patricia had created. We established a legitimate neighborhood association, democratically elected, with transparent finances and reasonable guidelines focused on community support rather than control. Mrs. Kim was elected treasurer, her careful record-keeping now serving the community honestly. The Garcia family organized multicultural potlucks that became monthly traditions. Tom headed a committee to create a truly accessible neighborhood, starting with proper ramps at the community park. As for Lily, the incident left her wary of strangers for a time, but with therapy and the support of neighbors who made a point of showing her kindness, her bright spirit returned. When Mike had to leave for his next assignment, he promised to video chat with her every week. You're the bravest person I know, he told her, making her beam with pride. Before he left, Mike helped us install security cameras and a proper fence, not to keep neighbors out, but to ensure Lily always felt safe in her own yard. Today marks exactly 1 year since that confrontation. Patricia is serving 5 years for fraud and conspiracy. Dawson received 18 months for assault and impersonating security personnel. Our neighborhood has transformed. The money recovered from Patricia's accounts funded improvements to the community park, including adaptive equipment so Lily and other children with disabilities can play alongside their friends. Last week, a new family moved in across the street. Rather than greeting them with rulebooks and threats, the neighborhood welcomed them with a potluck dinner and offers of help unpacking. Their daughter, about Lily's age, and my daughter are already planning a sleepover. This afternoon, we're hosting the first annual Sycamore Creek Community Celebration. Tables are set up along the street which the city closed for our block party. Children ride bikes and scooters on the pavement, and Lily races along with them in her wheelchair, laughing under the summer sun. Mike is back for a visit, helping me set up the grills while occasionally scanning the perimeter. Old habits die hard. He still doesn't think what he did was special. I just reacted, he says when neighbors thank him. Anyone would do the same. But we all know that's not true. It took one person willing to stand up to a bully to show everyone else they could stand up too. Sometimes freedom doesn't come from laws or rights alone. It comes from someone brave enough to enforce them. As I watch Lily laughing with her new friend, safe in a community that now protects its most vulnerable members, I'm reminded of something Mike told me the day after the confrontation. The strongest communities, he said, aren't built on rules and fear. They're built on people looking out for each other, especially those who can't fight for themselves. That's the lesson of Sycamore Creek, a community once controlled by fear, now guided by compassion. And it all began the day a fake HOA cop pushed my disabled daughter, not realizing her Navy SEAL uncle would push back harder than anyone could have imagined.